happening to cause this physiologic phenomenon, right? First of all, what is happening is there is recruitment of highly specialized cells which are responsible for removal of or resorption of the hard tissues of the tooth. And those cells are called odontoclast. Okay, they are not called cementoclast because they are causing resorption of cementum. No, they are causing resorption of dentine also, but they are not called dentinoclast. They are called odontoclast. So odontoclast is the general category of cells which are responsible for both cementum as well as the dentine, which is present inside as the component of the root. Right? So both the cementum and dentine are getting resolved with the help of odontoclast. So now, what are odontoclast? So you must have already read about osteoclast. Did you all have an idea about what osteoclasts are? Did you ever heard this term? Have you ever heard this term osteoclasts? Anybody?
Ma'am, bone resorbing cells.
Okay, very good. Bone resorbing cells are called osteoclast. They are all multinucleated giant cells which are all derived from the monocyte macrophage lineage of the blood. Now you have to understand this point very clearly. In the previous class also I have told you this, that osteoclast and odontoclast are not cells which are already present inside the bone. Right? They are not always present inside the bone. They will be recruited. They will be formed only when the need is there. Right? Why? Because if osteoclasts are present inside the bone, if odontoclasts are present inside the bone always, then they are going to do some kind of the function. They cannot just remain dormant or silent. Right? And under normal circumstances, there is no function for osteoclast and odontoclast which is required. We only require osteoclast and odontoclast for the purpose of remodeling or for the purpose of resorption. So whenever the need arises for remodeling of bone or whenever the need arises for resorption of the tooth, such as in the case of shedding, then only there will be formation of such cells. So resorptive cells are usually not the component of blood. You must always remember this fact. This is the general principle for all the categories or for every. This is a general principle applicable everywhere in the human body. Right? If osteoclasts will be present in the vicinity of femur bone or in the vicinity of humerus, then what are they going to do? They will do some kind of the function. And what is their function? Their function is causing remodeling of bone or resorption. But that is not required under normal circumstances. Right? So you must always remember this, that they are always formed. Classed category of the cells are always formed whenever there is a need for them. Right? So when the need arises for shedding, there is recruitment from the monocyte macrophage lineage of the blood, and they get transformed. There are multiple such cells fused together to form a multinucleated giant cell, and that is going to perform the function of resorption. Okay, so that is only when there is a need for shedding. There is a need for resorption. I hope I am very clear to everyone in the class. This is many times I have repeated this concept. Now you must all be very clear with this. Right? So odontoclasts are actually large multinucleate cells which are occupying the resorption base on the dental hard tissues, and they are rich in resorbing granules. So you must always appreciate the fact that the resorbing cells are present in resorption base. So this is a resorption bay. Now what is a resorption bay? Resorption bay is nothing. It is a kind of hollow space which is created for the purpose of attachment and for the purpose of functioning of the classed category of cells. Now you only consider the fact that if this entire bone surface or the entire tooth surface is flat, then what is going to happen? There would be no space which will be available for attachment of such cells. Right? Why? Because if the surface is not convex or concave like this, if it is not a hollow space, then all the ruffled borders of the odontoclast will not be able to attach. So purpose of this resorption bay is actually to enhance the surface area which will be provided for attachment of such cell. So more is the surface area, better would be the functioning of such cells, right? If it is just a flat surface, there would be only pinpoint attachment of such cell. So there would be only one point where the cell is attaching, and then the function would be very, very delayed. Obviously, it is going to perform the function, but then it is going to be very, very slow mechanism. By providing a resorption bay, you are actually providing enough amount of surface area for attachment of the cell so that everywhere across this surface, the acids are liberated and the resorption mechanism is fast. Right? So I hope I am clear with the purpose of this resorption bay. Now, in case of bone, when we are talking about bone resorption and we are talking about osteoclast, this resorption bay is called Oship's lacuna. What is it called? It is called Oship's lacuna. But here, there is no specific name given to it. It is only called resorption bay, right? So the place where the osteoclast is going to attach over the bone is called Oship's lacuna. It is again a hollow space which is produced because of for the purpose of providing increased surface area. Here also the same mechanism is happening, but here it is not given any specific nomenclature. We only call it resorption bay, right? I hope I am clear to everyone in the class. So this is a very important concept. You just cannot provide attachment to the multinucleate giant cell at a single point. There has to be an enhanced surface area. So multiple resorption bays will form across the surface of the tooth so that the resorption mechanism is faster. So this is how it appears electron microscopically. If you are going to observe it, the resorption bay would be such like this, and then there would be enough amount of ruffled border. So one mechanism of enhancing the surface area is definitely by causing this hollow lacuna or a hollow space. The other mechanism of enhancing the surface area so that faster the mechanism can happen is because of this ruffled border, right? So if this surface is flat, then again there will be very little amount of fluid which is getting secreted. Fluid in the sense acid, which is being produced by the cell for resorption of this surface. If it is a ruffled border, again you are increasing the surface area. So more amount of acid from each of this ruffled surface can be reduced and the mechanism of resorption can happen faster, right? So here what is happening is there is exchange of chlorine ion in place of bicarbonate, and carbon dioxide and water is again producing the hydrogen ions, which you have already must have studied in your biochemistry classes or in your 12th standard. This is called proton pump, right? This is called, what is it called? It is called proton pump. It is a mechanism by which there is exchange of ions happening across the cell membrane and it is producing acid. So this hydrogen ion and chlorine ion is going to combine with each other and then they are going to produce hydrochloric acid, which is actually responsible for causing resorption of the bone surface. So this is going to combine and is getting liberated by the ruffled border, and then it is going to deposit inside this resorption bay, and in all the surfaces it is going to simply disperse so that resorption can happen all across, right? So I hope I am clear with this. Everybody, have you understood? Please tell me right now.
Ma'am,
Yes, bolo.
ma'am, for the resorption of bone, both osteoclast cells and odontoclast cells will function simultaneously.
For resorption of bone, only osteoclast will function. For resorption of tooth, only odontoclast will function, right? And both the things are not happening in case of tooth shedding. Only resorption of tooth is happening. There is no resorption of bone. I am giving you the example of bone resorption so that you can correlate with that of the bone resorption, because both the mechanisms are very, very similar. But here there is only resorption of tooth. There is no resorption of bone. Bone resorption will not happen. Bone remodeling will happen. So resorption is one part of remodeling. You must always remember this. Remodeling is considering both resorption and deposition, and both the things have to happen if there is eruption of the permanent, right? But if you're talking only about resorption, that is not called remodeling. That will be only resorption, which is a part of remodeling. Understood my point?
Yes, ma'am.
You cannot use the word resorption and remodeling synonymously. No. Resorption is a part of remodeling, because remodeling will also have resorption plus reformation or formation of new. Understood my point? So here there is remodeling of bone and resorption of tooth, which is happening. Okay, so what is happening again here? There is ruffled border, and then there are a lot of vesicles which are present inside the cell, and they are all going to liberate the acidic component which is in relation to the resorption. Right? So how are they formed? I have already told you odontoclasts are just derived as like the osteoclast, and they are originating from the monocyte macrophage lineage of blood, and then they fuse together to form multinucleate odontoclast there. Right? So how is it happening is, first of all, there is odontoclast which is causing resorption of the tooth surface, the resorption of dentine and the resorption of cementum, right? And then once the dentine resorption starts, there is a microenvironment which is created for attachment of the ruffled border of the cell. And again, I'm repeating, there is creation of proton pump. What is a proton pump? Proton pump is a mechanism which happens across the cell membrane. There is exchange of ions which is actually responsible for accumulating whatever component is required inside the cell. Here resorption is required, so there is accumulation of hydrogen ion and chlorine ion which is going to join together, and then it is going to liberate the acidic component into the resorption bay from where the resorption is going to happen, right? And simultaneously there may be remodeling of bone, that is both the activity of osteoblast and osteoclast will happen. There is not just resorption, there is both the mechanisms, resorption as well as formation. So then there is remodeling. Now what is the need for remodeling? The need for remodeling is because when the deciduous tooth was present inside the tooth socket, the socket space was small, right? Why? Because the tooth size is small, but the size of the permanent tooth is large. So the socket size is also to increase, and that is the reason that bone resorption also has to take place simultaneously, so that the size of the socket can be facilitated. It should be big enough to facilitate the placement of the permanent tooth. Okay, so this is just the pictorial representation of what we have studied till now. There is only the tooth germ of deciduous tooth, then there is, deciduous tooth which is erupting inside the oral cavity, and this is the permanent tooth bud which is lying lingual to the deciduous tooth bud. Then the tooth has erupted in the oral cavity, it has performed the function, and by the time it is the child is approximately 5 years of age, the eruptive forces will start beginning, so that by 6.5 and 7 years of age, this tooth can erupt. This is a slow mechanism, it is not a fast mechanism. Resorption cannot happen in just one day, it happens over a period of time, right? So first there is going to be resorption on one surface, there is going to be degeneration of bone here, then there is going to be disintegration of the periodontal ligament fiber, and then the resorption will extend on the other surfaces, and slowly and gradually this tooth is going to be loosened inside the socket, and it is going to shed off, creating enough amount of room or space for eruption of the permanent tooth, right? So this is how the mechanism is happening. This is the summary of the events, right? So this is just one example of how a resorption bay can appear. And when the tooth sheds in the oral cavity, you can observe this fact also. You all may observe children at your home who are undergoing the process of shedding of the deciduous teeth. If a tooth sheds, try to appreciate how the tooth actually appears, because you must have not appreciated these findings when your particular teeth would have shed, right? So you should always appreciate. Now if you come across any child who is undergoing shedding of the tooth, just take that tooth in your hand and try to observe it from all the aspects. There would be no roots. Some part of the root would be present, but while the tooth is shedding, only the crown can be appreciated. Why? Because the roots have undergone resorption. Some part of the root may remain, not all, but definitely the root has undergone resorption, so you will not be able to appreciate the entire root of a tooth which is already shed, right? So you can observe this practically. This is practically possible. So if you get this opportunity, you must always hold the tooth in your hand and observe the different aspects. Okay. So this I have already told you that there is disintegration of periodontal ligament and the tooth support diminishes, due to which the tooth is not able to take up the masticatory load and the process of exfoliation is accelerated, right? So this is all because of loosening of the tooth inside the socket. Okay, so this was all the mechanism of shedding. So once there is a question on shedding, you have to write the definition. Then you have to write different mechanisms, which I have just told you. You have to write how the eruptive forces will play the role, which surface will be first to resolve on the anterior teeth in relation to the anterior teeth in relation to the posterior teeth. Then you are also expected to write the histology of shedding. So then you are going to explain all the things which I have told you. That is the recruitment of odontoclast, remodeling of bone, the sequence of events, and also what are odontoclasts, how are they derived, right? So all these things have to be explained. Then in the end, if there is a long question, you can write the clinical considerations also. So what all things can happen while there is shedding? Sometimes there can be some portions of the root which have remained inside the socket, right? Some portions of the deciduous tooth can remain inside the socket, and if you will observe, such patients are going to complain pain because such root portions are predisposed to different kinds of periapical infections and pathologies. So that is why this kind of a condition is usually symptomatic. The person will come to you and he will say that there is pain in this segment. You have to take a radiograph, and you might come across an accidental finding of some portions of the segments of the tooth which are still in the socket. So in such an instance, you will have to extract the tooth roots with the help of the forceps. Because once this is extracted, then only the pathology will be healed and the permanent tooth will get enough chance to erupt, right? Okay, so then what can be the other possibility? The other possibility is there is already enough amount of time has passed, 7 years of age has happened, and still there is retention of the deciduous teeth. So if this resorption of the deciduous tooth has not happened, then permanent tooth will be forced to erupt somewhere else because it is going to change the path of its eruption, right? In such an instance, again, you will have to take a radiograph. If the root has resolved, you will have to extract the tooth with the help of the forceps. Sometimes lack of eruptive forces causes this phenomena, due to which if there is malalignment or malpositioning of the permanent tooth germ, then it is not going to exert enough amount of eruptive forces in the direction where it should have caused the forces or the pressure. So permanent primary tooth may get retained for a longer duration of time. So then in such an instance, you will have to extract the primary teeth so that the permanent teeth can come and occupy its place. Okay, so these are the examples of retained deciduous teeth. If you see the radiograph, this is one tooth which is retained, whereas the other adjacent permanent teeth have erupted. Here also, this is an example of a retained tooth. It is not a very, very rare phenomena. Many a times when you will come in your clinical practice, you will get to see retained deciduous teeth. It is a very, very common thing which is seen in the clinical practice, right? So here also sometimes some teeth may get retained. Now then you can have an example of a submerged tooth also. Now what is a submerged tooth? In the last class I've already told you, when there is no periodontal ligament and there is fusion of cementum with that of the bone. That is, there is a concept of ankylosis. Ankylosis is a phenomena whereby the periodontal ligament space is not there and there is a direct association of tooth and the bone. In such an instance, even if there is enough amount of exertive forces or eruptive forces by the permanent tooth, then also the deciduous teeth will not shed. Why? Because the periodontal ligament space is not there. So periodontal ligaments have to disintegrate in order to cause loosening of the tooth. So the tooth is not going to resolve on its own. But such kind of teeth will remain inside the bone like this, below the occlusal plane, and then since there is no possibility of such teeth to shed off, so in such an instance you will have to undergo a surgical excision. So what is a surgical excision? You will have to remove or cut the bone, right, with the help of cutting devices, and then you will have to extract the root. The tooth, it is going to cause enough amount of time also for the patient to heal, not the similar amount of time which is required for healing while there is exfoliation with the physiologic mechanism. And once healing has happened, then the underlying permanent tooth will erupt into this space. But this is going to take a long time, right? Okay, so this finishes the chapter on shedding of teeth. when there is a long note, please prepare it accordingly. And I have seen your assignments on eruption of teeth. Many of you have written it correctly. Also, some people, you will have to modify your email IDs, right? Because you have kept it with some random names, and then it is very difficult to identify which student has sent the email ID, the particular assignment, right? So you please change your email IDs with your names. And while you are submitting the assignments, write your roll number and your name also in the mailbox. I hope I am clear with everyone. So while I'm still checking the assignments on eruption of teeth, you are expected to complete these 3 questions which I have placed on this PPT. You all may note down these questions. This is for your next assignment, right? So before my next class, I would like to have the assignment of all these 3 questions. So you have to write down a note on differences in the shedding pattern between anterior and posterior teeth. You have to explain the role of odontoclast in shedding, and you have to list out the similarities between osteoclast and odontoclast. Now these 3 questions are short notes. They are not long questions. So this is a very short assignment. Try to complete it in a day or 2, and then you may send it to me. I hope I am clear to everyone in the class.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so please note down these questions. Once you are done, you please tell me that you have written. So everyone, I hope I am clear with the topic. Are there any doubts or questions related to eruption or shedding? You may raise your queries now. We still have 5-7 minutes. We can discuss. Did you all read the chapter of eruption from textbook?
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, I have a doubt from theories of eruption in clinical considerations.
Okay.
Ma'am, what is hyper eruption?
Hypereruption is beyond the normal occlusion plane when the tooth is erupting. If there is no tooth in the opposing arch, there will be no restriction to eruption, right? So both the opposing teeth of the arches have to erupt simultaneously. If that is not happening, or if suppose the tooth is missing, suppose mandibular molar has to erupt, but maxillary molar is missing. So the amount of space which is to be occupied by maxillary molar is also available for mandibular molar. So then in that instance, mandibular molar may erupt even beyond the occlusal plane. So that is an example of hypereruption.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Thank you, ma'am.
Anything else?
Ma'am, what is the difference between hypereruption and super?
Hypereruption and? I can't hear. Please repeat.
Ma'am, what is the difference between hypereruption and supraeruption?
Supraeruption happens on account of attrition. Right? Hypereruption is happening when there is a normal mechanism of eruption. Supraeruption happens in the later stages of life. Once the tooth is undergone attrition, suppose I am at the age of 55 or 60 and my both the molar surfaces, the occlusal surfaces have undergone attrition. So then they are not meeting at the occlusal plane. The opposing tooth are not meeting at the occlusal plane. But they have to meet at the occlusal plane. Why? Because if they are not meeting at the occlusal plane, then what is going to happen? The mastication is not possible. Because the opposing teeth of the opposing arches have to meet at the occlusal plane, then only the mastication would be possible. So both the tooth of the opposing arches will try to little move ahead towards each other, so that they may meet somewhere at the occlusal line. That is called supraeruption, which happens on account of physiologic mechanism, which is attrition. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
That is happening in order to restore the function of mastication. Because if supraeruption will not happen, there will be space between both the teeth, and then mastication is not possible.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Ma'am,
Yes?
why tooth eruption occurs earlier in female?
I can't hear you. Please be loud.
Ma'am, why tooth eruption occurs earlier in females as compared to male?
I can't hear you. You can write your question in the chat box if it is possible. I can't hear you.
Hello, ma'am.
Sorry, your voice is no. I cannot hear you properly. Your voice is very low. If you can write your question in the chat box, is it possible? Try to come closer to the mic and then speak.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
why tooth eruption occurs earlier in female than males?
Why tooth eruption occurs earlier in females? That is the question?
Then male.
Okay. Yeah. So tooth eruption, it is not just the tooth eruption, it is all the milestones in life, right? The female child starts to sit early. The female child starts to walk early. There is more. The puberty in a female child achieves early. The tooth eruption happens early. All these mechanisms are related to hormonal balance of the female body, right? So they are all related to the hormonal system, endocrine mechanism, as all the milestones in the female body are achieved slightly earlier as compared to that of the male child. That is the reason.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
Ma'am, in book, in the impaction of teeth topic, they have written the third molars and the canines are often impacted. Ma'am,
Yeah.
at last class you told that third molars are not impacted teeth. Huh?
No, I never said that. I never said that third molars are not impacted. They are the most frequently impacted teeth.
Ma'am, can you please
If the third
explain?
molars have started erupting, then you cannot call them impacted. You have to understand the difference. If there is enough amount of space, if there is eruptive force, you can feel the pain. Some portion of the tooth you can see in the oral cavity. If the tooth has started its erupting process, but it is not complete, then you cannot call it impacted. If it is completely inside the bone and the process has not started only, then the tooth is impacted. Third molars are the most frequently impacted teeth because there is, due to the process of evolution, the jaw size has reduced as compared to our grandparents or our parents, right? And slowly and gradually with the generations, third molars are going to become vestigial. They are not going to erupt. They are sometimes it is might possible also. There are different schools of thought over third molars, but many people are having impacted third molars is because of lack of enough amount of space for eruption, right? So once the tooth has started erupting, you cannot call it impacted. If you can see portion of the tooth in the oral cavity, then even third molars you cannot call it impacted. But if it is completely inside the bone, there is no possibility of its eruption, then it is impacted.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay? Anything else? Anybody? Okay, then I am leaving this class. Okay, so you are expected to complete the assignment and submit it to me. All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.